Future of Society, Part 4, Session 4. Last week, we began a discussion of how best education and labor would best thrive in a site value taxation economy and what would be the facets of such an economy. Firstly, the use of public private partnerships, PPP, is believed to be the best approach and vehicle to provide education at all levels preschool, primary, secondary, and tertiary. The organizations that will facilitate and drive the education process are the EMO, a management organization from the private sector that houses, recruits, and presents the educational curricula to its student intakes; ECO, a commission, a quasi-judicial entity that procures and vets the EMOs, its teachers, and its methods. The discussion last week was very wide-ranging, and perhaps it may be best to recap all the points that were made before we move forward. The state's role in this new education initiative will now be facilitator rather than provider. They will provide the educational facilities, the regulatory framework, the curriculum blueprints, the educational standards to attain, and finally, the accreditation systems. The educational facilities would be initially provided, but the responsibility to maintain and upgrade same would fall to an educational management organization, EMO, that would be delivering the education services. The regulatory framework would be provided by an Educational Service Commission, ESC, that would vet all the teaching appointments, adjudicate on disciplinary appeals of teaching staff, investigate and report on any matters that would be reported by students and parents, and liaison with the government for the implementation of curriculum blueprints and enforcement of accreditation standards. The EMOs would be offered 5-year contracts with the option to extend for another 5 years. The initial letting and extending would be carried out by the ESCs and would be based on strict guidelines of management and teaching capacities and experience. EMOs could either be local or foreign based, and this would also be the case for teaching and other personnel, if the minimum standards in both cases are being met. EMOs would be required to provide all the services that would ensure the successful running of the educational facilities. An EMO could be contracted for multiple facilities, of course, depending on its capacity. This would include the capacity to provide the necessary maintenance and refurbishment services to the physical plant, furniture, and other sundries. EMOs would be of various types for primary schools, secondary schools for the arts and music, secondary schools for sport management and performance, and adult educational schools. The public-private partnership for the management and operation of education is likely to yield much better results as far as discipline, educational excellence, and better character of our young charges. The evidence provided by denominational schools and charter schools worldwide suggests that this is a better option. The state should leave the business of education in specialist private hands and provide the necessary vision and supervision as far as regulations and standards are concerned. Curriculum development. There has been much emphasis on curriculum as far as education is concerned, and the intention here is not to thread a beaten track as far as this subject is concerned, except to stress that in an SVT environment, there will be the need to provide a wider array of educational training for the wider array of services that will be possible in this regime. The other possible consideration is that the curriculum should take the longer view that the educational model should allow for the apprenticeship in the workplace for those persons who would need a longer period of maturation and acquisition of skills and know-how. A much longer view would also be needed for those requiring and pursuing adult education. have, however, been a few grand omissions where the curriculum development is concerned, and this is worldwide. Maybe these omissions were because the educational fraternity probably sees these matters as the responsibility of others in the community. But because the education system holds the youth as a captive audience more than any other, it seems to be the best place to address them. These matters relate to the life experiences of all of us, and some of us may have had to wrestle with these issues at some point in our lives. These are drug addiction, alcoholism, anger management issues, sexual deviance, kleptomania, and other proclivities towards criminal activity. The general descent of morals and values are also to be included. Because so many of these issues may affect us or our loved ones, friends, and acquaintances, it is now incumbent on us to treat with these, if only at a superficial level. Preparing adolescents for the real world also means preparing them to confront these ignominies in addition to providing the traditional educational training. You may contend that these may be ideally handled by good parenting or good pastoral intervention, but the school environment is a very captive one, with minds that are their most impressionable. To miss the opportunity would indeed be a grand omission. What more have we to say about this new approach to education? Let us take our usual break now. Continue our recap of what was discussed last week. Another area that certainly needs intervention in the curriculum is that of physical health. There is no doubt that there is a prevalence of poor eating and lifestyle habits, which has led to obesity, non communicable chronic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease, and huge financial health budgets. The curriculum must include in their schedules advice and tutelage on how best to lead a healthful life, a healthy lifestyle, to avoid these health issues in later lives. Just consider the impact this can have on these very lives if they are indoctrinated from a young age. We have received no formal education on this in the past, and we are much poorer for it. It is not enough to inform the students of what constitutes healthful living or ethical, moral living. They must be subjected to formal examinations on these subjects, in much the same way as they would on traditional subjects. It is only through measures such as these that such matters would be taken seriously, and the knowledge therein would be useful in the adult lives of these students. The list of subjects that could be included in the curriculum could look something like this: anger management, that may result in physical, mental, and emotional abuse; substance abuse management, alcoholism, drug addiction and abuse; prescription drug abuse and addiction, etc. good parenting, sexual deviance behavior mitigation, pedophilia, hetero and homosexual deviance, etc. Kleptomania management, including criminal tendency mitigation, and ethics, values and morals education. And now go further to include the subject of physical health in the educational curriculum. With respect to physical health, urgent and valuable education could be included in the curriculum with subjects to be taught such as proper nutrition and diet education, environmental education, and physical education. Proper nutrition and diet education must emphasize that natural foods are more healthful and superior to man-made foods since the latest scientific research reveals that man-made foods are responsible in the main for obesity and non-communicable diseases. Physical education is most important for encouraging the youth away from a sedentary lifestyle. Environmental education is now necessary to give young citizens a better appreciation of the immediate and wider environment for personal, community, and national well-being and action. These then are the main tenets of our educational offering in an SVT regime. What more can we say about this as we move on? For the rest of our session today, we will consider the importance of research in increasing the educational asset bank, particularly in developing countries. The importance of research. For a developing country, there is a very important activity that must be engaged in if it is to attain developed country status. It must do the necessary robust research into those goods and services that it could manufacture as added value or finished products that it could offer to the world from its resource base. Many times the technological know-how resides with developed countries, and there may be the need to invite the technology in. Many times, though, when this is done, there is no technological transfer, either wittingly or unwittingly. The receiving country must ensure that they have set up such contracts or systems that the technology transfer does take place. The technology must be made to eventually reside ultimately in the archives of the country and not in local individuals. There is much research that could be undertaken by the developing country without the assistance of foreign entities. A spirit of research must be fostered at the university and other learning institutions, which must be adequately funded by private funding into all areas of viable activity, all areas that will advance the sustainable development of the country. The results of this research must be brought forward into the public domain unless it is proprietary research, so that it may be added to the general education of the country. Over time, the country will begin to reap the benefits of this. The area of deficiency in most developing countries, which would have been mentioned elsewhere, is the deficiency of data upon which to make the most informed decisions. The culture of gathering and collating data that is relevant to any development issue is to be encouraged throughout all public and private institutions, and this data should be published and updated regularly. This would inform as well as drive decision making. Too many countries rely on external sources for its internal data, which may not be the best option as far as accuracy and the context are concerned. The culture of research and the gathering of data are indeed medium to long-term projects, but these must be seen, even though there may be unknown costs attached, as an essential part of sustainable development. The difference and distinction between developed and developing countries is primarily in record keeping, data collection, and decision making based on information from real data. What gets measured gets managed, and the more current and accurate this data is, the better managed outcomes are possible. We will end our session today But are there any other comments? Next week, we will continue our discussion on labor and education. Before we end, I would like again to let you attendees know One Sustainable Development is an educational offering devoted to the dissemination of its cause to all of mankind and to those who have the English language as their official language in the first instance, and to all eventually all over the world. We have in fact been sending this course all over the English-speaking world with very favorable responses. To continue to make this possible, and because we do not charge a fee for this dissemination, we rely wholeheartedly on monetary donations to meet the cost of achieving these goals. If you have found these sessions useful thus far and would like others to have access to them, we would gratefully accept your donations should you be inclined to offer them. You can send donations to our PayPal account at the email address notebroker2001@yahoo.com. Thank you for your kind gesture. As indicated before, you can communicate with us by going to our Facebook page on sustainable development or our YouTube channel, Balancing the Economy. We will respond to all your comments or questions. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the alert button to get notices that our latest session has been posted. All sessions are archived at our Facebook page. Please share with your family, friends, and acquaintances.